Hello, this is Lynn Reilly, author, licensed professional counselor, master energy therapist, and your host of Living Serendipitously. Today, we are going to be talking about the topic of freedom and how to gain more in your life. This is really a practice, as they all are, of recognizing that in each moment of your days, you are making a choice. Freedom is yours, and we get our freedom through our choices. A choice on how you choose to think, how you choose to respond, and how you choose to react. And you have way more power in those choices than you tend to see. Do you find yourself limiting yourself as to what you think you can do? And are you in the habit of saying, I can't more than I can, or no more often than yes? I certainly know I am, and it's something that sort of irritates me about myself, and I think, oh, here I am blocking myself again, and then question why. So if you do, you are not alone. And it's just a way of thinking that's a habit. And we're going to be looking at that today and challenging that habit to create a new one, ideally one that works better for you. You can learn more of these self-awareness practices in my working book, 30 Days to Me, which can be found on my website, livingwithserendipity.com, along with my children's book, The Secret to Beating the Dragon, as well as through sacredstoriesmedia.com, the wonderful company working with me to support you. So on day 3 of 30 Days to Me, the question is posed, what does freedom mean to you? What does it feel like? Where would you like more freedom in your life, and how can you create it? I love this question so much. I've asked myself this question many times when I begin to feel closed in or like I'm limiting myself. In fact, one of the things I really like about the working book is that I go back to the questions and process time and again when I start to feel depleted and off. Because it's definitely not a one-shot deal reconnecting to ourselves. I wish it was. But life happens in such a way that we can be really working on our patterns and feeling awesome and developing this great way of living, and then something will happen that sets us off, and it's like, okay, what just happened? Why am I feeling like this again? What am I missing? Because the truth is that life is all over the place, and our emotions can be as well. And it can be so easy to fall back into those old self-defeating habits when things get tough, and sometimes not even realize it until you feel it and wondering what's going on. Staying connected to ourselves takes effort and awareness, and then more effort to truly live in a comfort zone that is indeed comfortable. So let's answer that question. What does freedom mean to you? What does it feel like? Freedom to me means no constraints, not being tied down, the ability to move freely wherever feels best. Freedom to me feels open and airy and filled with options, yet not needing to commit to any of them in particular until I feel ready, or close to ready, because I'm actually very good at dragging my feet. So I want you to take some time to answer this question. Where would you like more freedom in your life? Where do you feel constraints? Is it in your relationships, the way you communicate your wants and your needs? Is it in your job? Do you feel limited in your resources? Where do you feel held back? When I personally first answered this question, it was a focus on the lifestyle I wanted. I was working on creating a vision of how much time I wanted to put into my work hours and how I was going to balance out the kids. My time with them is really important, but my work is also important, and I didn't want to feel limited. So I created the freedom to do this with the choices that I made, determining the hours I wanted to work and how much money I wanted to make, and then I let my decisions and my actions reflect those choices. And sure enough, my ideal schedule was created and worked beautifully. Why? Because I felt it, what I wanted. I created a structure around it, and then I followed through, despite having fear that it may not work. And I absolutely had huge fear that it may not work. And I had to keep revisiting that fear, but I also let it fall into place. I challenged the beliefs that I couldn't and made it happen by the actions that I took to support what I wanted. It required awareness for sure, but also a lot of focused effort and consistent decision making. And that is actually not my strong suit. If you know me, I'm actually can be super scattered, and sometimes it's like wondering how on earth I get through life with my scatteredness. But I struggle with it. So it wasn't easy. And in retrospect, though, I mean, living more of the same wouldn't have worked for me. It's just not what I wanted. So I had to really practice that focus to make sure I was doing what I said that I wanted to do. Now, when I answered that question now, it tends to be more of a desire for freedom in my mind, freedom to change my thoughts, freedom to work through my fears, freedom from worry and continuous questioning, freedom to keep choosing new ways to think. And I will be totally honest, it felt much easier changing my work lifestyle and taking financial risks than it does to practice freedom from mental constraints and old ways of thinking, because man, those were fears. Just kind of get stuck in that hamster wheel of thought. But when you break out of it and it works, man, it is ridiculously motivating. The freedom to make choices because it feels right for me is an incredible practice, because it's consciously, truly consciously, working through old and limiting beliefs and developing new ones. You know, we hear about those old beliefs all the time, and revisiting them and looking them. And why does that feel tricky? Because your old beliefs feel supported by the voices of others that you love and trust, and often society or the cultures that you live in. They're expectations that are handed down to you, that were taught to and believed by others, and then became your beliefs. You can hear your mother's voice say, "No, you shouldn't do that. It's not smart. You can get hurt." Or your father saying, "Don't do it. You won't be happy with the results, so stick to what you know." Or your partner saying, "Yeah, no, we can't," or "we shouldn't." Or your friend saying, "Yeah, I would not do that." So back in day 7 and 30 days to me, those voices of expectation are explored, where they come from and how they are helping you, as well as how they are limiting you. And it's eye-opening to see how much those voices of expectation dictate your choices and put you in a place of feeling stuck, even though you never actually are. When you look at those expectations and beliefs now, you can ask, is that true? Does that belief work for me? Is it limiting me? If so, how can I free myself from those limitations? What is actually getting in my way from doing what I say I want? And furthermore, what do I want? Me, not others. What do I want? Per usual, you're going to find that it's usually fear that's getting in the way. That old fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of judgment and rejection. Fear of isolation and abandonment. Fear of not enough. That kind of stuff. Most people that I see and talk to limit themselves based on fears of what ifs, the worst case scenarios. For example, I talk to many people who are afraid to communicate directly in their relationships. They feel like they can talk to others about their feelings, but not directly to the person who they want to communicate with. So they dance around whatever the issue is and build resentment, which of course creates a wedge in the relationship. And I'm talking all relationships, but they don't want to talk to them directly. And then they get all passive aggressive, and neither one of them has a clue as to what's going on, because so many games are being played and no one has a rule book. So why do they hold back? Yeah, fear. Fear. Fear that they won't be understood. Fear that they will be rejected or put down or ignored. Fear that if they are honest, nothing will change and they will go through the discomfort for nothing. This, of course, is not true. If you change the energy has to change. Not necessarily the first time, because we may be stuck in a pattern. We're good at that. But when you change that pattern consistently, when you make a different choice, when you have a different response, when you use that freedom, it has to change. It cannot remain the same. So for example, if you're wanting more time and freedom to do activities you enjoy, but you're in the habit of taking on the responsibility in your household because you feel you should, you will be consistently disappointed and likely complain about all the other members of your household and their lack of help on repeat. And so you build up this resentment and blame them for not stepping up without even giving them the chance to do it. Or even worse, you'll give them one or two chances, and then when they don't do it to your liking, you're just going to squash the idea and call it a failure, which of course then increases your resentment. Yet it's you who is choosing to take on the responsibility because you either feel guilt that you should do it all for some reason or that you can do it better. Therefore, it's easier for you to do it. That's a total typical mom excuse, by the way. Moms who struggle to give up control. And you don't want the other members of your household to be angry or upset that they have to contribute. That's another reason. But whatever the reason is, you are creating it. You are creating the limitations, and therefore creating a response and an expectation from the other members of the household that they don't have to. And then you get all mad at them for following along with the expectation that you actually created. And I'm saying this with sort of like a tone of you do it, but I totally do it too. I get it. And if you want more help, okay, let's break it down. If you really want more help, if you want more time and freedom to do other things you'd like to do, then make a choice. Ask for it. With respect and understanding, and also own your part. I mean, you can tell them straight up. I created this expectation that I would do all the work, but at this point, I'm unhappy and it's not working for me anymore. And it's time to change it up. And I'd like your help to do that. And if it's a big change, they may not be receptive the first time or the second or even the third or fourth. But if you remain consistent about your expectations and your responses to it, the energy has to change because you are changing the energy. A new expectation is forming. And what do we know about change? Most people are pretty damn resistant to it, so it may require some true effort, but it will change. You know what doesn't change? Doing more of the same. If you choose not to change anything, then nothing in turn will change. And that's your choice too. So the solution to having more freedom to play or to focus on other things that you enjoy may be as simple as asking for help and drop some of the expectations you have for what your responsibilities are and question why you are limiting yourself. That's a basic example of giving yourself the freedom of time by taking it. But let's look at something that might feel a little more challenging, a different example. Let's say you're in a relationship that you don't feel good about. One of you is consistently dishonest with the other or holding back how you truly feel. You may even be abusive, or they may be. You're afraid to communicate how you feel because you don't know what the other person's response is going to be. You may fear rejection or that they'll leave you. You may fear an angry response and how that will feel. You might feel hurting them, have a fear of hurting them, and hold on to some guilt around that even before it happens. You may fear retaliation of some kind, and so you avoid it, feel stuck, and continue to remain unsatisfied. This, again, is choice. It's locking yourself in a prison of confinement when the door is wide open. You limit your possibilities by staying in the same room of your mind with no movement. The potential discomfort of what could happen becomes the misery of what is, and you live there. That's until it becomes so uncomfortable you feel like you have to make a move, or it's done for you. Until then, it's you and you alone who limits your freedom. Freedom of choice, freedom of expression, and freedom to live your life as you choose. No one can actually take that away from you except you. Another common example is financial constraints. Money fears, the desire for financial freedom. And for most people, money represents security and opportunity. And they feel it opens doors, and they feel without it they are limited. And guess what? When you believe you are limited, you feel limited. And when you feel limited, you feel stuck. Lack of freedom. Money fears are one of the biggest reasons people stay in relationships or jobs where they feel like they are suffering. They don't like the way they're treated or the work they are doing, but they feel like they have to stick it out because their options are limited. They choose financial freedom over personal freedom. And then they resent money for it. They blame money for it. It's not the money making you stay. It's the perception around it, the belief that you won't have enough. And yet, you have no proof that this is true. It's just a fear. It's an unknown. And you, as a human, are ridiculously good at making unknowns a known by playing out the worst case scenarios, the ones that 99% of the time never happen. Yet you base your decisions and your freedom on that 1% chance that it could. 1%. Which is why it's so important to have continuous discussions with your fears. Like on day 10, 30 days to me, when the fear is taken out of the equation, to make a decision, to know which way your intuition and heart wants to go. That's how we figure it out. We take out the fear. And if money was not a concern or a fear of lack, what would you do? This is your decision. This is how you know what it is that you truly want. Again, choices. Your choices make your freedom or they limit it. So the last question on freedom, what can you do to create this freedom you want? I mean, awareness is fabulous and it's powerful. And you know where you want more freedom. Now, what can you do to get it? Create an action plan for change to get what you want. How will you change the energy? You want more honest relationships? Then be more honest. You want more support in life? Then ask for it. You want more time in your day? Then prioritize what's meaningful for you and delegate wherever possible for stuff that's not. You want more financial freedom? Then look for other ways to make money. You want to stop worrying? Then start practicing facing small fears so you can integrate more trusting thoughts in your everyday living. There is a solution and an option for most of what you think blocks your freedom. And it starts and ends with you accepting your part. You, the one who makes the choice. And remember, this change of perspective, that you don't actually have limitations, that choice guides your life, is a practice. And I'm serious. I am personally continuously practicing how to alter my old beliefs and create the freedom I crave. And I know how challenging it can be. But again, it's so worth it. And a little effort goes a long way, per usual. For more techniques and practices on living serendipitously and with joy, as well as great self-awareness activities, check out 30 Days to Me on livingwithserendipity.com and sacredstoriesmediacom. And I want to thank you again so much for joining me today as we talk about the freedom in your life that you want, you deserve, and that you absolutely can create. And I will catch you next time on Living Serendipitously with Lynn Reilly.